this is not a civil war. This is not a conflict. This is a war, and Putin started, and Russia started this war. Russia are killer and terrorists.
So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first ever episode of The War Report. And I am here today joined by a very special guest, Oleg Korinniy, who is a war reporter, combat cameraman, who has been documenting the Ukrainian war for the last few years. And I'm very proud to have him on the show as the first guest for a new series. So, Oleg, over to you. Hello, how are you?
Hi, everybody. My name is Oleg Korinniy. I'm living in Mariupol, in a frontline city. I'm working in Channel 5 as a military cameraman for 3 years, and I'm filming Ukrainian war, actually, in the places like Shirokino, Krasnogorivka, and many others frontline cities in Donetsk Oblast.
These are actually frontline cities that you're going to. They're
Yep.
right on the edge of the action. And well, that's obviously very interesting. It's a very dangerous job. So let's just start with how you got into that. What's inspired you to want to go and do that type of work?
Actually, in 2014, I wanted to go to the Ukrainian army, but I have some issues with my heart, and I had an operation in my heart, so I wasn't in a condition to go to the military. And I told myself that I will find any way. I will find some kind of way to get on the front line to solve it with my eyes. You know, when I'm saying to solve everything by myself. So I started to work in media, and then with some time I got job on the front line as a military cameraman.
Right. And just for those who aren't necessarily aware of what that job entails, why don't you tell us what a day-to-day is in your life every time you're visiting the front line?
Day to day, it's quite different. Sometimes it's routine, sometimes it's a hard physical job, sometimes it's hard moral and mental work or job. Sometimes when you saw those soldiers for the first time, speaking with them, joking with them, there are many of them are quite nice guys, and then you came to the same positions. His commander telling you that he's not here already when you wanted to speak up with him a second time, and when you ask him like why he doesn't hear, why he's not here, and commander saying like he was shot by the sniper. And sometimes it's quite hard, you know. Sometimes it could be fun, but always when you are on the front line, you asked me that is it dangerous or not. Even if you know that you're on the second defense line, not on the front line, you should beware that, because it's not a kinder. This is not a garden walk, you know. It's quite dangerous anyway, even if the other side don't want to shoot you. Last time when we go to one of the last time when we were in the Pavlopol, if you remember this village, we go in the second line of the defense, and we saw a grenade beneath. I saw a grenade beneath my leg, and we're just walking, and nobody knows how it get it there.
Yeah. No, I remember that well. For the audience, that was a mine that was placed there that had been, and we were just walking along there. It could have ended terribly, really. And that was a common experience actually up and down the entire front line.
Yeah.
It's very sad. Interestingly, you said the job's very hard on your mental health. So before we go any further, let's just talk a bit about that and how you're actually able to take care of your mental health. Is it something that you're actively monitoring?
Mm, Actually, uh, I couldn't give you any good recipe for everyone, to help your with if you have some mental issues on the front line. But I have an expression that helps me and that I've always tried to mm, re- remind to myself. Well, and this expression is there will be a time that you need to stop anyway and stop running from your evil demons and ask them what they wanted from you actually. And this expression helps me, at least for me.
Good.
uh,
Because you were there from almost the beginning of the war. You've been doing this for 3 going on 4 years. That's obviously a lot of strain on you, because even soldiers, they rotate out after 6 months, but you're staying there
yeah
for 4 years. Do you
yeah
ever think about the longevity effects that might have such a stint of time?
well, yes, I have some uh, you know my mentality have changed anyway when I worked for 4 years on the job. Anyway, and sometimes in not in the good way. Sometimes when you came to the Mariupol and trying to speak up with people who doesn't see uh, everything what I saw on the front line, those people, those soldiers who dying, some of my friends already dead. If you remember when we were in Shirokina for 5 hours and the soldiers didn't let us the front line. Good my good friend, he was a medic, has been shot down in
Yeah,
that day,
I
and
remember in the ambulance. It was a terrible business.
yeah, it was quite depressing.
Yeah.
And the main what I wanted to say, the main example is that it's so hard to speak up with people who don't understand what's happening there, and it's like to trying to breaking the wall, but without any, I don't know how to say it, because I'm on emotions. Sorry, because I'm remembering those peoples and those moments. So
No, well, we thank you for sharing it with us, actually. Obviously, we both know people that we've lost during this terrible war. And it
yeah,
actually brings me on. You say people don't understand. And that is because I think a lot of people, especially in the West, have a misconception about what the situation is on the ground. So maybe you can tell us a bit about that, actually what the reality is on the ground in Ukraine at the moment.
at the moment, well, I guess, well, my opinion is quite pessimistic about what's going on now, because the new government and changes what's coming in with the new government with Zelensky are terrible, I guess.
For the audience who don't know, I mean, their main purpose has been to try and end the war, and they've been working on disengagement sites. And in 2019, there were 3 of these disengagement sites. There was supposed to be 3 more this year, which haven't happened yet. And so that's the position that you're against, so to speak.
Yes, of course. I'm against the speak because the keys from the war ending, it's not in Ukraine, it's in Russia. I guess it's in Moscow. So with the new government and those speeches like we need to end war by the any prices, by the any price, uh, I'm not supporting those speeches like that, because yes, every war and every victory had a price, but who will pay? And I guess with this government, it will be not Russia, and I will pay as a local Ukrainian. I will have this price in my paycheck.
So, I mean, it's obvious. I mean, I know you personally. Your view on this is pro-Ukrainian. You're on the Ukrainian side. So let's just talk
Yes.
about your, your political leanings, if you will. You've obviously mentioned Russia. Do you see them as the aggressor in this war?
Um, of course, of course. I'm blaming Russia as a killer, but the main blame, I think, it's on the civilized society. Yes, because of course Russia is a killer, and not in the first time. Look at the Georgia, look at the other countries when they started war. They terrorizing Britain with killing people, using poison and stuff like this. But I guess civilized countries need to, well, killer must be prison, you know. And Russia, at least now, they didn't understand any talk without uh, without power, you know.
And what do you think Russia's end goal is in this?
As you can see, the main goal will be when the Ukrainians will believe in that in the story that this is a civil war and not Russian aggression. The main goal will be there. But I guess for now, Russia just trying to wait when the political situation will be such a bad in Ukraine that we again will be weak like in 2014, and something will change in bad situation for Ukraine. Well, and they just waiting, but not just waiting. They buying TV channels in Ukraine. They trying to make information war. They making the war by the different ways.
So that's in their propaganda and their fake news, so to speak.
Yep, yep, you're right.
And I've witnessed this myself in Ukraine. There's always two versions of events of something that's gone down. But do you think this is just a one-sided tactic, or do you think Ukraine and Russia are both kind of guilty of this, trying to get their narrative across?
Well, I can say that, of course, if we wanted to win in this war, we should um, use also propaganda. But I couldn't say that we used propaganda as Russia.
So you're in a unique position because you live so close to the front line. And what's that like living in a city which is effectively 10 kilometers away from an active war zone?
Actually, it's quite interesting, you know. um, Sometimes when I came out for my running in 4 a.m. And the whole city is sleeping, you hear like bomb shelling, um, like our street is the right word. Our street of the city is bombing, and I'm standing smoking my pipe and thinking to myself that, yep, this is the artillery walking. But sometimes when, like 2015, when one of the districts was bombed by Russian artillery, by Grad, it was quite terrible, and I was feared that the Russians started um, that they already started to take Mariupol, and I was quite feared. So
Right.
it's quite different sometimes.
No, I understand that. And I guess it must be kind of difficult for you if you're, like you say, smoking your pipe and you're hearing this artillery in the evening. You must know the next day you're going to have to go out there and film whatever it's hit. Does that ever play
Yep.
on your mind at all?
Well, I think I will get used to it, but the main problem, it's not about used to it. It's It's about to came home and thinking that there is a people who you're speaking up with are still on positions. Those good guys, those soldiers that defended me and other other part of Ukraine from Russian aggression. This is my main mental issue about it. It's not about my safety or something like this. As I said, I'm already used to it, but it's hard to think about the other people.
Speaking of the people, obviously you've got a lot of concern for people that are on your side, on the Ukrainian side, but
Yes, of course.
only 15 kilometers away, you've got civilians living on the other side, and they
Yep.
were countrymen. They are countrymen in the eyes of your government. What is your opinion, and I guess Mariupol, your city's opinion, on those people who are civilians living on the other side? How do you view them these days?
Well, I think those anyway um, of their opinion, they could be pro-Russian or pro-Ukrainian. It's their opinion, but they are victims of this war anyway. But without, well, I wanted to say from the start, I think for myself, on the other side, I didn't saw Russians, of course. I couldn't saw them Russians, but I think there is a people who are collaborate with Russian army anyway. And yes, I didn't see Russians, but I saw evidence of Russian aggression. Some bombshells that Ukrainian army don't use, um, and some military ration that using by Russian army, stuff like this. And if you want, I can send you a video. Last time I filmed this from bomb shelling from RPG with the marking of year when the Soviet Union has already collapsed, 1982 actually.
Right.
So a part of this bomb actually with marking.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's not really much movement in this day and age to deny Russian involvement at all. But it's interesting for the audience to try and figure out, for the native Ukrainians living in this region on the other side, are they mainly people who are being held hostage by a corrupt regime, or is it the majority of them that are actually supporting?
For my opinion, I think there is a pro-Ukrainian people. Yes, there is a pro-Ukrainian people. Even the last time, maybe you heard the story that the one of poor guy that lived in Donetsk, Bogdan, I guess his name is. He wanted to start to learn in Ukraine, and he was pro-Ukrainian, and he was captured in the territory of Donetsk. He just disappeared, and that's all.
I
The
heard
guy
about
was
him. This is
just
the asthmatic guy who, and they didn't take any of his medication.
Yep, yep.
Right.
So I wanted to say that when you are in occupation, even if you are pro-Ukrainian, you couldn't say any word about your pro-Ukrainian position because you will be captured and go to the as a hostage.
So do you see what's happening in Luhansk and Donetsk as an occupation?
Yes, of course, but I also think there is a people who collaborate with the Russian army, and I'm sure and I know that there is such a people who collaborate with Russians.
I mean, I always feel that that's a very difficult. These people that are doing the collaborations, they're the people that are putting the block to any form of peace because nobody knows what to do with them. Say if the war is to end and these lands return to Ukraine, what are we going to do with these 40,000 soldiers that have been fighting on the other side? Are they going to be welcomed back with open arms? Because I find that very hard to believe.
Well, as officially, there is a program, that we are waiting you at home. If you heard about it,
Well,
if you will.
why don't you explain to our audience a little bit about that?
Well, This is a program from SBU, Ukrainian. I don't know how to say it in English.
The
Do you know what
Secret Service.
Yep, secret police. That helps people who will collaborate with Russians. Maybe they have some information that helps the Ukraine to go to the Ukrainian side without some issues. Well, so there is officially program, but I guess those people who was brainwashed by the Russian propaganda, by some of them were brainwashed by the parents that thinking that Russia is still USSR, but it doesn't. By the parents who are nostalgia about USSR, thinking that Russia is still USSR, but it doesn't. USSR who don't like Ukraine, I think they will not call just like easy, like, yeah, let's go to Ukraine. I think not. But many of them, I guess, disappointed about everything that goes in Donetsk and Lugansk. And also, I wanted to say that I don't believe that only two cities could fight with the whole country, even like Ukraine. I mean, for Ukraine for 6 years. I couldn't believe it.
And by that, I guess we're talking about manpower and ammunitions and supplies, that type of stuff that you need.
About fuel, about bombshells, about ammunitions, about everything. Even if you could believe that they steal it from the Ukrainian army, but where they get fuel, bombshells, everything like that for 6 years, it's nah.
I remember one time in Vorian, I was doing an interview and there was a bit of a firefight cracking off. And the guy said, you know, a lot of these soldiers on both sides can shoot up to 1,000 rounds per night. And he was saying they've been doing that for 6 years. How do they still have enough bullets left? Because obviously they had some stockpiles when the war kicked out, but they weren't producing anything. The Luhansk cartridge works, which is obviously closed down since, that's not producing or shouldn't be producing. So it is a very interesting point, and I actually think that's one of the strongest arguments for proof of Russian supplies, because where else is all of this coming from?
I guess from Russia. They couldn't buy anywhere from outside. Only Russia can bring it to those territories, those bombshells and everything. I even have a friend. He's a quite interesting person. He had Russian citizenship, and he supported Ukraine in the Maidan, and he fought on the Ukrainian side. And he was captured by collaborators in Snezhnoye, and he was tortured, and he was taken by the Russians on Russian territory. And he tells me that I saw when I was in Snezhnoye, I forgot this in English. Anyway, when he was in Snezhnoye, captured as a hostages and tortured, he saw Cossacks, Russian Cossacks, who came there, and he saw ammunition, bullets, I don't know, RPGs, so many weapons that they even don't try to hide it, you know, and stuff like this.
So with this interference, with this political, well, it's a political mess as well as obviously a very deadly mess on the ground. How do you think this is going to end? How do you think, what's the end goal for either country?
As I said, it will end or by paying someone their check bills, as I said, with their dignity. Well, Ukraine will pay with their dignity and territories, I guess. And the main problems in the 70% people who believe it that, as I said, the keys are in Kiev to stop this war, but it's not right. The people are. I don't want to nobody, but on my opinion, they're dummies. They didn't understand. They didn't saw the whole situation on the front line. They didn't. Those people, I was, lied by the government, by new government. That they really can't stop this war. We couldn't stop this war because if we stop. Sorry, we stop this war, mm, we will lose our territories, lose our dignity. And those guys who died to defend territory of Ukraine, it will be just for nothing.
So
Just for
you're
now.
of the opinion that the Ukrainians should continue until they reclaim back the land that's been lost?
I guess yes. I think we can took this territory only with power, with military power, but not like like in straight. We should wait when the situation in Russia will change to a bad scenario,
And
or
is that
maybe
something
Putin.
you think will happen? Like maybe Putin will be removed from power, or I mean, what scenario could you imagine in Russia that would change things here in Ukraine?
Well, I don't believe in Russian people because many of them are thinking that in other politics, Putin is right, that he's taking Crimea, that invading different countries, showing power of Mother Russia and stuff like this. They supporting Putin in world politics, but they don't supporting him in things that he do actually in Russia. But I don't believe that there will be some revolution stuff like this. But I believe that it will be some issues, political issues in high levels. When the spiders trying to eat each other, and we just need, as Ukrainian, I think that we just need to wait this moment when there will be problem, political problem in Russia, because as you can see, the civilized world um, didn't help. They helping and our allies helping, but for Russia, it's not such a big price to pay and stop this war.
I wanted to thank you for your time. It's been really interesting, and it's been very quite personal to see into your life day to day, a bit of aspect of what your life is. And I just wanted to finish with talking about the effects that this war has had on you personally, because you've invested so much of your time, so much of your career, so much of your adult life into it. I mean, this war has shaped your adult life, and for so many people, they'll never experience that. So I just want to know what any final thoughts you might have had, someone who's been so profoundly affected, good and bad, by a conflict on their doorstep.
Well, maybe it will be emotional, but I think that we will win this war anyway, because the truth is on our side. We didn't start this war. We didn't occupy Crimea. We didn't start this war in Donbass. So I think the truth is on our side. Even, for example, that book who came from Russia, as Bellingcat said, and there is evidences and examples about it, a lot of it, as you know. So I think the truth, the main thing, that the truth is on our side.
Well, and you say people in Ukraine don't understand it. That's even more true for people in the West, people in the US, people in the UK. What would you say to them about what your life is now, or what kind of message would you give to anyone who's watching this video?
This is not a civil war. This is not a conflict. This is a war, and Putin started, and Russia started this war. Russia are killer and terrorists, and don't elect, please don't elect those people who wanted to close eyes on this on that criminal who's sitting in the Kremlin, because I know that the West don't want to have problems with Russia. Yes, as Liza Minnelli sings, "Money makes the world go round," because they will better take some money and close their eyes. But already 40,000 Ukrainians are give their life because of this criminal.
Oleg, it's been so interesting to talk to you. You've obviously lived a very experienced, at times often very sad life. And I really want to say thank you on behalf of myself and our audience for sharing some of your stories with us today. Is there anything, any final remarks you would like to make? Anything you feel like you haven't said?
I want to say that it was a pleasure for me to give you an interview about it. I think it was quite interesting. But anyway, it was really interesting for me to speak up and remembering those people, those guys on the front line.
Well, we're very grateful that you did. It's turned out really well, and I think our audience will be very happy. So on behalf of all of us, I want to say thank you for joining us. Most importantly, stay safe in your work, because that's what we want.
Thanks.
And hopefully in a few months, we can have you back and see what the latest is. That would be really interesting.
Okay, no
and
problem.
to the audience, thank you very much for joining us. And we'll be back next week for a brand new interview. But in the meantime, please do check out the website. We have some new merchandise. We have some new articles, and you can find it all on our website, firstfocusdocs.com.